Yo people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about open marriages. Now I've seen a lot of things come out in the media about Will Smith, about Jada Pinkett and August Alsina. Hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I think it is Alsina. But yeah, it really got me thinking like about open marriages, because when I think about the Bible, I don't see like a specific text that says, thou shalt not be in an open relationship. So, I'm going to play a few clips that kind of show how I develop my own thoughts, and we're going to have a discussion, can we do open marriages? Like, is that a viable alternative to a monogamous marriage? Because when I thought through some of the rationales that Jada and Will gave in my research, I was like, I can kind of understand where these guys are coming from. But the first thing I'm going to play is a clip I came across on Twitter of, August Alsina basically speaking about his relationship with Jada Smith. And, to be honest with you, it is very, very difficult to unpick exactly what he's saying. He goes into a lot of, cryptic detail that kind of explains the point, but in a very roundabout, cryptic kind of way. So I'm going to play that now.
Truth. I actually sat down with Will and had a conversation due to the transformation from their marriage to life partnership that they've spoken on several times, and it, not involving romanticism. Mm-hmm. He gave me his blessing, and I totally gave myself to that relationship for years of my life, and I truly and really, really deeply loved and have a ton of love for her. I devoted myself to it. I gave my full self to it. So much so to the point that I can die right now and be okay with knowing that I truly gave myself to somebody.
Right, you did the right thing.
And I really loved a person. I experienced that. I know what that feels like, and some people never get that in this lifetime. So I know that I'm completely blessed. And this conversation is difficult because there's so much that it would be hard for people to understand. But once it starts to affect me in my livelihood, I have to speak up about my truth and stand on my 10 with anything that may come along with it.
Is it disappointing that she never addressed it to you? Because, like you said, you lost out on opportunities. Yeah. And if there's
I really can't even, I never even can get into the thought of that, because I'm only responsible for myself, right? And I'm only responsible for, what I do. When I'm repressing and suppressing things and it starts to affect me, I have to address it. I just always stay silent because I never want to be the person to cause confusion, because I love these people.
Right.
I really genuinely do. And I have literally never been in love in that kind of a way. So much so that being intertwined in that way, walking away from it, butchered me. Like, I'm shaking right now.
So yeah, watching the clip, you genuinely feel sorry for the guy. Like, I know that August Alsina has been on a journey. I know he's battled with lupus. I'm sure he's had many other challenges. I saw a clip of him, actually singing gospel music, and his voice is beautiful.
He knows my name. He knows my
I've heard that he's actually coming out with a gospel album, so I would love to hear a gospel album from August Alsina. Make it happen. But yeah, I mean, the main thing I saw from this clip was heartbreak. Like, he seemed to have genuinely devoted himself to this woman, loved this woman, but this woman was a married woman, And I think one of the challenges with, open marriages is that somebody is going to get heartbroken. And in this case, it was August Alsina. But, I really wanted to understand more about Jada's perspective and Will's perspective and, you know, their understanding of an open marriage. And I'm going to play a clip that, you know, where Jada speaks about open marriages now.
What do you say to the rumors? There's a persistent rumors of y'all, though, right?
Always.
Yeah.
I love them.
The most persistent ones, y'all have an open relationship.
Yes. That's the most persistent one.
And that's...
You can do whatever you want as long as you can look at yourself in the mirror and be okay.
Wow.
Okay? Because at the end of the day, Will is his own man. I'm here as his partner, but he is his own man. He has to decide who he wants to be. And that's not for me to do for him. Or vice versa.
I was going to say, does that go to...
Yeah, and watching this clip got me thinking, well, you know, when you think about all the challenges of monogamous marriages, you know, one of the key problems in the area of unfaithfulness is the betrayal of trust. You know, I agreed and you agreed that, you know, we'd be faithful to one another. And what typically happens is that one of those people break the agreement. But in an open marriage, right, how do we process it when both couples or both parties in the marriage agree that actually you can do whatever you want, you know, and we both mutually agree that? And I thought maybe that is an effective way of addressing, you know, areas around trust and, you know, jealousy and envy, because we both agree, you know, that we can do what we want, you know, and we can still do that within the confines of our relationship. In other words, we have defined the parameters of our relationship as being, you know, we both agree that you can do what you want, and that is our relationship, you know. And I thought, maybe that's a viable alternative to a monogamous marriage. And it really does make you think that, should Christians do this? You know, is this a viable alternative? You know, and it makes you feel like maybe this is the best of both worlds. We're married, we're you are the main person in my life, but there's other people in my life, and we both agree that we can, you know, do what we want.
Like how my real love get a shake. Better if you give me a break. Cause a boy like me not mad. No. Me not mad over no girl. Cause a boy like we not mad. No. We not mad over.
But then I thought, hold on. You know, the Bible talks about how there is a way that seems right to man, but the end of it is destruction. And the thing is, just because an open marriage seems like a good idea on the surface, we can't trust in our own understanding or ideas. You know, as a Christian, I think it's very important for me to consult what the Bible says, or what the Bible seems to imply about open marriage, and allow God to form my opinion. Because even though open marriage might seem like a good and acceptable idea, in my estimation, you know, God knows much better than I do. So I began to go on a journey of thought, reflection, of studying the Bible and commentary surrounding it, and thinking, well, hold on, what is God's view of an open or polygamous marriage? You know, what would he esteem in terms of whether this is a good idea or bad? And after reading through and studying and reflecting, I've come to 3 arguments that basically state that I think that an open marriage is contradictory to God's plan and purpose for marriage. And I think the first thing I want to say is that although there aren't any specific verses in the Bible that specifically say, you know, you can't be in a marriage with more than one person, like, I don't think there's a specific verse that addresses that. I think when you consult the whole counsel of Scripture and you faithfully interpret what God is trying to say through his word, the idea of open marriage, I think, is incompatible with the biblical perspective and commentary on marriage. And the first point I want to raise is that when you look at God's original design, it gives you a viewpoint of what marriage is by design in his estimation. And when we go back to the garden in the book of Genesis, it explains how a man and a woman shall leave their household, and the 2, not the 5 or the 7 or the side chick and somebody else, but the 2 will become one. So God's original design for marriage was that 2 people would become one. And actually, in the Gospels, Jesus is keen to remind the Pharisees of this. And he talks about the original purpose of God, how God made man, made them man and woman, and he says that what God has put together, let no man put asunder. So we see in the New Testament Jesus reinforcing the idea of the originality of God's plan in the man and the woman becoming one before God. Another great example is Jacob, Rachel and Leah. We know that Jacob loves Rachel, but as soon as he marries Leah and Rachel, we see that there is a tension between the two sisters. There is friction, there is jealousy, there is infighting. We see Leah mocking Rachel because she can't have children. We see Rachel's deep emotional pain. This is all directly attributable to the fact that they're in a polygamous marriage. Another example, Abraham, Sarah and Hagar. Sarah tells Abraham to marry Hagar because she can't have children, but as soon as Abraham becomes the husband of Hagar, we see a friction and a tension between Hagar and Sarah. I think that by design, we are designed for faithfulness. We're designed to be regarded and loved by one individual. And I think by nature, when you introduce other actors into that marriage, there is naturally and inevitably going to be some kind of tension, some kind of friction. So I think biblical history indicates that polygamous relationship is counter to God's plan, and we see experientially and emotionally the turmoil that people go through when they are in these marriages that are polygamous. Again, another example, Solomon. The Bible records about how his many wives, he had like 700 concubines and wives, turned his heart away from the Lord. And slightly related to this, I found a clip of Will Smith talking about his relationship with Tupac, that there was a tension between him and Tupac because of the love that Jada Smith and Tupac shared. And we see even in the experience of Will Smith, you know, other people being involved in the party creates some kind of tension and animosity. You know, we by design are created to love and desire love from one individual.
Were you ever jealous of the love Jada had for Tupac?
Oh yeah.
I know you
Oh
say
my
no.
God, that dude. Let me, and you know, and that was in the early days.
Yeah.
That was in the early days, and it was like, that was a big regret for me too, because I could never open up to interact with Pac, you know, and because we had a little bit of a thing, right? Because you know, they grew up together, and you know they loved each other, but they never had that, you know, they never had a sexual relationship, but they had come into that age where now that was a possibility, and then Jada was with me, you know, so. You know, Pac had a little thing on that, but she just loved him like he was the image of perfection, but she was with the Fresh Prince, you know, so it was like, I never could, like, even we were in a room together a couple times, I couldn't speak to him, you know.
The next point I want to make is, what is God's purpose in marriage? Why did God even make marriage in the first place? And my estimation is that God used marriage to communicate to human beings the nature of the love that he had for his creation. And that was a faithful love, you know, a covenant faithfulness. And when we get married to a woman, or when a woman gets married to a man is demonstrating and celebrating the same love that God has for his people, a covenant faithfulness. We see in the Old Testament that God would describe Israel as his wife, as his bride, and actually he describes himself as being jealous for the people of Israel. You know, he accuses them of prostitution when they turn towards other gods and they worship the gods of other nations. He desired that his wife, his people Israel, would have their unadulterated attention and focus and gaze on him. And when a man marries a wife, the book of Ephesians 5 says that we are to love our wives as Christ loved the church. In other words, as Christ loves his people. When a man stands on the altar before his wife and vows to love her in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, he is demonstrating and celebrating the same love that Christ has for me. In other words, Christ says to me in the context of Christianity that, Demi, I love you, that no circumstance will separate me from me. That no circumstance will separate me from you. The Bible talks about how we are inseparable from the love of God. So a question you have to ask yourself is that if I have multiple partners, right? If I can have one partner, you know, that she's getting old, I'll get another wife, and this wife is not interested in me, I'll get another wife. Does this kind of relationship reflect and honor the kind of love that God had for his people in the nation of Israel? Does it reflect the kind of love that Christ has for his church? Is that kind of polygamous, no strings attached, opened, low expectation kind of relationship consistent with the kind of confident faithfulness that God has for us as his children? And I would come to the conclusion, no, it doesn't. I say all these things to say that ultimately, as Christians, as believers, we will be presented with ideas that sound sensible, that sound like good ideas, but we must make the resolution within ourselves that we trust God's opinion more than the opinions of men. You know, and I know from our own experiences, we can see experientially that this isn't a good idea. But furthermore, I believe that the Bible advocates the perspective that marriage is the union between one man and one woman. Being said, I'm keen to... Yeah, come in.
Do you want McDonald's?
Is someone ordering?
Yeah, Mum.
Oh, yeah.
What do you want?
Can I get a chicken sandwich, an apple pie, an ice cream? Can I get 3 cheeseburgers and 1 Coke?
Wait, is that it?
No, there's more. Can I get 5 McFlurries?
No.
Can I get... Okay, wait. Let me tell you my real order. Can I get 2 Big Macs, 5 fries? Can I get 1 Coke? Okay, I'm joking. For marriage, I always worried about, you know, will it be exciting? Will there be faithfulness in this marriage? You know, there's so many concerns and fears that I have about marriage, but I still surrender myself to what the Bible teaches. And I say to myself, do you know what, God? If this is what you think, then I'm submitted to it. If this is what you think, then I'm submitted to it. I only ask you for the grace to remain faithful to this institution that you have created. And I don't want to accept the ideals or the normative patterns of the world. I want to do what Jesus wants. You get me, fam? But yeah, on that point, thank you so much for watching this video. There's going to be much more content coming on this channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with somebody. But until the next time, juices.